You don't notice a fire the second it starts. Sometimes it's just a shift in the air. A smell. A quiet hum of something not quite right. That's how it began with Lola and me. Nothing dramatic, no shouting matches or slammed doors. Just a flicker. And for a guy who runs toward real fires for a living, you'd think I'd have seen this one coming. I'm Peter. Firefighter, 14 years. Married to Lola for 7. No kids, though we tried. We have a golden retriever named Diesel who, ironically, has better instincts than I do when it comes to people. I guess the job trained me to keep my head down and handle chaos. It didn't train me to watch my home life smolder in silence. The thing about being a firefighter is you're never really off duty. Even when you're home, your mind's running through checklists. Gear. Dispatch. That call last week where the kid didn't make it. Meanwhile, Lola, she needed more than a ghost of a man who crashed on the couch smelling like smoke and exhaustion. At first, she was supportive. Or maybe just patient. She'd text me during shifts. Send memes. Ask about my crew. She even used to bring dinner by the station on Friday nights. Lasagna in foil, kisses on the cheek, the whole picture. But slowly things changed. I remember the first time I noticed the difference. It was a Wednesday. I had a 48-hour shift, but the captain let me off early after a slow night. I came home with breakfast and a stupid grin, hoping to surprise her. She wasn't there. I texted. Waited. No reply. I called around noon and she finally picked up. Said she was out with a friend from college. Voice a little too chipper, like she was selling the story to herself. Didn't know you had plans, I said. Neither did I, she replied. It was last minute. Fair enough, I told myself. Everyone's allowed to have a life. But then came more missed calls. Less talking. More scrolling through her phone at dinner. And the perfume. She started wearing one I'd never smelled before. Sharp, floral, almost performative. Not for me. For someone else. The kicker? Diesel didn't like it. He used to climb into her lap the second she sat down. Now he stayed near me. Eyes watching. Tail down. By month 3, I knew something was off. One night, after back-to-back calls, I got home and found the house too clean. You ever walk into a place and it feels scrubbed? Wiped of presents? That's what it felt like. Lola was in the shower. Her phone, unlocked on the nightstand, buzzed. Just once. Same room. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The silence between us grew loud. Her questions faded. So did mine. I started sleeping more at the station. Volunteering for extra shifts. Anything to avoid sitting in that house pretending not to see what was happening. Then came the voicemail. Hey babe. I know I'm on call again tonight. Just wanted to hear your voice. I'll be home late. Love you. She never responded. That night, I parked 2 blocks from the Motel Haven on 6th. Funny how the name feels cruel when your life's falling apart. I watched her check in. Watched M pull in behind her. Tall guy. Expensive suit. Confident like he'd done this before. They didn't see me. But I saw enough. I didn't go home. I slept at the station not because I had to, but because it felt more like home than our place ever did. Next morning, I called my old friend Ray, a divorce attorney. You ready to talk about it? He asked. Not really, I said. But I'm ready to do something. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. That's the part that scared me. How numb I felt. Ray told me to gather proof. Not to confront. Just to stay quiet and let the process work. So I bought a small camera. Discreet. Easy to place. I got the footage I needed. Dates. Faces. Details. Lola never suspected. She was too busy living her new life. Funny thing about firemen, we trained to stay calm in chaos. And in that moment, I realized my marriage was just another fire. One I wouldn't be putting out. Next up, serving papers. But before that, I had one last thing to do, take my name back. Not legally. Not yet. I just needed to remember who I was before I became Lola's husband. That's when I saw the listing. Old food truck. Cheap. Needed work. But something about it pulled at me. And for the first time in months, I felt a spark. The food truck was rust-colored and dented along the back wheel well, like life had already taken a swing or two at it. The owner was a guy named Vic who'd started selling tacos out of it before moving on to something less greasy, as he put it. I didn't care that it needed new tires or that the grill sounded like a dying lawnmower. It felt like potential. Like purpose. I bought it 2 days later, cash. I didn't tell Lola. What was there to say? Hey, while you were out with your mystery man, I bought a beat-up truck so I could rebuild my life one grilled cheese at a time? Didn't have the same ring to it. Instead, I started showing up to the station early and staying late, not for extra shifts, but to work on the truck. The guys helped when they could. Benny, our engineer, rewired the breaker panel. Mike handled paint. Even the rookie, Danny, chipped in. They didn't ask many questions. Firehouse code. I told them it was a side project. Something to keep my hands busy. But every bolt tightened and burner cleaned felt like therapy. Like sweat could scrub betrayal out of my bones. Meanwhile, Lola kept playing her part. She kissed my cheek. She asked about the dog. She told stories with holes in them so wide you could drive my food truck through. One morning, she left early, said she was helping a friend move. Diesel whined the second she closed the door. He knew. I swear, that dog saw the cracks before I did. Later that day, I installed a new decal across the truck's side, ashes and embers. Fitting, right? You come through fire, you don't come out the same. But if you're lucky, you come out sharper. Stronger. Cooked, maybe, but not burned up. Ray called me that afternoon. You still want to go through with it? He asked. Yeah. Serve the papers. He paused. Want to be there when she gets them? Nope. Just want it done. I knew exactly where she'd be Tuesday evenings at that same motel on 6th, routine. Almost insulting how predictable it had become. So I gave Ray the details. And that night, I didn't wait for her to come home. I went out to the truck, flipped on the lights, and made the first sandwich of my new life. Bacon, egg, hot sauce. Named it the wake-up call. Next morning, I found the kitchen spotless and silent. Lola's eyes were puffy. She didn't say much. I didn't ask. I poured my coffee and sat across from her like it was any other day. You got served, I said. She blinked. Yeah. I did. There's nothing to discuss. She nodded, small. Like she already knew the fight was over before it began. Do you love him? I asked, not sure why. She looked down. I don't even know him. There it was. Honesty. Just a little too late. I stood up. I've got a truck to finish. And I walked out. Out of that house. Out of that chapter. Into the next. I didn't look back. The first morning after walking out, I didn't feel freedom. I felt weirdly hollow. Like someone had vacuumed the air out of my lungs overnight. I sat in the driver's seat of the food truck, drinking gas station coffee and watching the sunrise through a windshield that needed replacing. Diesel sat in the passenger seat like he'd been riding shotgun his whole life. Well, buddy, I said, patting his head, this is home now. He wagged his tail once, slow, like he understood we were starting over. Over the next few days, I stayed with a guy from the station, Mike. His spare room was filled with old fishing gear and dusty trophies, but it had a bed and a door I could close. That was more than enough. Mike didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and said, stay as long as you need. I dove into finishing the truck. New stove. Checked the propane. Learned how to build a business website from a 12-year-old on YouTube. I spent hours sketching out a menu in a greasy notepad, comfort food with a twist. Sandwiches with names like the backdraft, the fire escape, smoke, and mirrors. I wasn't trying to be clever. I just needed each one to mean something. To reclaim some part of myself. One night, I was out late scrubbing the fryer when Benny pulled up in his old pickup. Got something for you, he said, hauling a metal sign from the bed. It was hand-cut steel, laser-etched, and painted in deep orange and black. Ashes and embers. Figured you should have something that looks permanent, he said, setting it against the truck. I stared at it a long time. Then nodded. Thanks, man. That sign made it real. Lola texted me a few times. Simple stuff. No begging. No explanations. Hey. Just wanted to know if you're okay. Diesel's bed is still here if you need it. I didn't reply. I wasn't trying to punish her, I just didn't have anything left to say. Some things burn so hot, they can't be rebuilt. Ray sent over the next steps. I signed what needed signing. Gave him power of attorney to finish things without dragging me through court. Then I filed the permits for the truck. The first week of official business, I parked near the courthouse downtown. Foot traffic was solid. People liked the name. The firefighter angle helped. One guy said, I came for the grilled cheese, stayed for the story. I smiled, handed him his change, and said, we've all got one. By the end of that week, Ashes and Embers had a small line during lunch hours. I started a punch card. Bought Real containers instead of foil. Life began to feel like something I could hold in both hands again. But then she showed up. It was a Tuesday. The air smelled like rain. Lola stood at the end of the line, sunglasses on, arms crossed. I kept working. She waited. Patient. When her turn came, she stepped forward, quiet. Can I get one wake-up call? We're out, I said. Even though we weren't. She didn't flinch. Just nodded. You look good, she said. Thanks. Business is steady. I heard. We stood there a moment. Me behind the window. Her on the sidewalk. Two people with a shared history and nothing left to share. Take care, Peter. You too, Lola. She left without ordering anything else. I turned back to the grill and flipped a sandwich that didn't need flipping. Then I exhaled. Closure didn't come in the form of some dramatic showdown. It came like everything else in real life, quiet, awkward, and a little sad. But it came. And that was enough. Business was picking up. Slowly but steadily. The people who came to Ashes and Embers weren't just looking for food, they were drawn to something else. Maybe it was the firefighter angle. Maybe it was the way I treated every customer like they were the only one that mattered for those 5 minutes. Maybe it was Diesel lying beside the order window, tail thumping like a metronome of calm. I still slept at Mike's place, but most days started and ended at the truck. Morning prep, lunch rush, restock, then late-night cleanup under string lights I strung across the truck's awning. There was something healing in the routine. Then came the weekend festival. The city held a little fall event downtown, music, food, booths selling crafts and candles and pickles for reasons I'll never understand. I got invited to set up with the other trucks, and even though I was nervous, I said yes. Saturday morning, I rolled into my spot early. The truck was clean, the griddle hot, and I had Diesel's water bowl filled by 9 a.m. Around 10, a woman approached. Mid-30s, jeans and a flannel, camera slung over one shoulder. She ordered a fire escape and took a picture of the truck. "You mind?" she asked. "Not at all." "Instagram? Local food blog," she said. "Trying to highlight small businesses with soul." I chuckled. "Well, we've definitely got some of that." She took her sandwich, sat at a nearby bench, and waved as she left. Didn't think much of it. Until 2 days later when the article went live. From Fire to Flavor, The Redemption of Ashes and Embers. It blew up. People shared it like wildfire. She told my story, not all the personal details, but enough. Firefighter turned chef. A man rising from heartbreak and loss. A dog named Diesel who never missed a shift. The next morning, the line stretched around the block. I was too busy flipping sandwiches to get emotional, but inside it felt like something had shifted. That night, I sat in the truck alone, counting bills and sipping cold coffee. The air was crisp. Leaves starting to fall. A knock on the side of the truck startled me. It was her. The woman from the blog. "Hey," she said. "Didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "Letting me tell your story. It mattered to people." We talked for a while. Nothing flirty, just easy. Real. Her name was Julia. She used to work in PR before ditching the corporate life to write and take photos for local businesses. "You ever think about doing this full-time?" she asked. "It already is full-time," I said, laughing. "I mean bigger. Catering. Private events. Maybe even a second truck." I shrugged. "One step at a time." She smiled. "Well, when you're ready, let me know. I've got ideas." That night, after she left, I looked out at the quiet city street and realized something. The fire didn't just end. It cleared space. For something new. Something better. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just surviving. I was building. 2 weeks after the article, I had my first catering request. A retirement party for a former fire captain, guy I didn't know personally, but someone who'd worn the same uniform, fought the same kinds of fires. His daughter had read the article and insisted I cater it. "You sure they want me?" I asked when she called. "They want real food and a real story," she said. "You've got both." So I said yes. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions I'd made in a while. I showed up with the truck parked out front and the griddle fired up. Diesel stationed himself by the steps like the unofficial party mascot. I served sliders, grilled mac and cheese sandwiches, and a new item I called the Captain's Toast, sourdough, smoked turkey, sharp cheddar, and a bourbon mustard glaze. The captain pulled me aside at one point. "You one of the new guys from Ladder 42? "Used to be," I said. He looked at me a moment. "You found your next fire, huh?" "Something like that." He nodded. "Good. That's what it's all about." By the end of the night, I had 3 more bookings and a pocket full of business cards. More than that, I had a glimpse of what life could be when you stop trying to rescue something that's already gone. Julia stopped by the next day, camera in hand. "Heard you crushed that party," she said, snapping photos of Diesel before I could protest. Word travels fast. Small city. She stayed a while, helped wipe down tables, even folded up the chalkboard menu without asking. She fit into the rhythm like she'd been there a dozen times before. After we closed up, we sat on the truck steps watching the last streaks of sunset fade. "You ever think about telling the rest of the story?" she asked. "Not just the truck, the whole thing. The marriage? The motel? The wake-up call in human form?" She nodded. I sighed. "I don't know if people want that kind of truth." "They do," she said. "They just don't know how to ask for it." We sat in silence for a bit. If I ever tell it, I said finally, it won't be about her. Not really. It'll be about the part of me that almost forgot who I was. And the part that fought to remember. That's the story I'd read, Julia said. That night, I wrote the first draft of a blog post called From Ashes. Just a rough version. Rambling even. But honest. I didn't post it. Not yet. But I saved it. Because part of healing is remembering. And part of moving forward is knowing what you had to leave behind. The morning after I drafted the blog post, I woke up to the sound of rain on the roof of the truck. Diesel was curled up on my coat, snoring softly. I poured a cup of coffee, cracked open the side window, and listened to the soft tap of water on aluminum. Something about the rain always made things feel quieter inside. That day, I didn't open the truck. Instead, I drove. No destination. Just pavement under the wheels and a playlist I hadn't listened to since before Lola started drifting away. Music had always been something we shared. After things fell apart, I stopped playing the old stuff. It felt too raw. But that day, I let it play. Even the sad ones. Especially the sad ones. Halfway through a stretch of country road, I pulled over at a viewpoint that overlooked the valley. I climbed out, Diesel following, and just stood there. Breathing. I hadn't really stopped since the night I watched her walk into that motel. Every day since had been movement, running from something, building something new, pretending I was fine. But that morning I stood still. I let myself grieve. Not for Lola. Not really. But for the version of myself who had believed love was enough to make someone stay. For the man who came home from back-to-back shifts thinking lasagna and a kiss on the cheek was proof that everything was fine. He deserved a goodbye too. Later that afternoon I found a roadside diner. Ordered a slice of pie and a refillable mug of black coffee. The waitress called me Han and had that kind of smile that made you feel like you weren't alone even if you didn't say a word. I wrote another post on a napkin. Sometimes healing isn't about big leaps. Sometimes it's just sitting still long enough to feel the weight of what you've been carrying and realizing it's time to set it down. When I got back to the city, I opened the truck again. The next day, I posted both pieces to the blog. The response was bigger than I expected. Comments, emails, people stopping by the truck to say they'd read it and it meant something. One woman left a note folded into her receipt. Your story helped me leave a man who treated me like an option. Thank you. I kept that note in the cash drawer. Julia came by later that week. She didn't say anything at first, just handed me a coffee and nodded toward the folding chairs I kept out back. We sat there a while. That blog, she said finally, was the most honest thing I've read all year. Felt good to finally let it out. You ever think about writing a book? I laughed. I flip grilled cheese for a living. Exactly, she said. And people are hungry for more than food. I didn't have an answer, so I just sipped my coffee. But somewhere in my chest, that old familiar spark lit up again. This time, it wasn't anger or grief. It was something new. Possibility. Fall turned to early winter in a blink. Mornings were cold enough to see my breath and I started stocking hot cider alongside the usual coffee. The food truck became a little haven of warmth in the gray chill, steam curling up from the griddle like smoke signals to anyone needing comfort. The blog kept growing. Julia started helping me with edits and layout. She even talked me into doing a short video, just a clip of me flipping sandwiches, talking about starting over, set to acoustic guitar and the sizzle of bacon. People loved it. Said it felt honest. Like a friend talking to them, not some influencer selling a dream. I didn't expect the attention. One day I was a guy with a grill, the next I was on a local podcast talking about resilience and heartbreak over a plate of brisket melts. You ever think you'd become a public figure? The host asked. I shook my head. I just wanted to stop feeling like I was sleepwalking through my own life. The real surprise came a week later when I checked my inbox. Lola had emailed me. Subject line, no drama. Just words. I stared at it for 10 minutes before opening it. She wrote that she'd read the blog. That someone forwarded it to her, not knowing it was about us. That she hadn't recognized herself at first and that scared her more than anything. She didn't ask for anything. No second chances. Just wanted me to know she was sorry. That she was getting help. Therapy. Trying to understand why she'd blown up the life we had. You didn't deserve what I did, she wrote. And the worst part is, I knew that even while I was doing it. I closed the laptop and sat with it a long while. Then I took Diesel for a walk. We passed our old block I hadn't driven by since I left. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Just kept walking. The past doesn't disappear. But it loses its grip when you stop feeding it. Back at the truck, I printed her email. Folded it, placed it in a small metal box where I kept other notes people had left. Not because I wanted to keep her close, but because it was part of the story now. One thread among many. Julia noticed the box one night while we were closing up. "You gonna write that book?" she asked again. "Maybe," I said, locking the back door. "But first I want to live a few more chapters." She smiled. "Then I guess we better keep making them good ones." We stood there a moment. Cold air. Hot truck. Quiet understanding. I didn't know what the future looked like, but for the first time in a long time I wasn't afraid to find out. The first snow came late, but when it did, it stuck like it had something to prove. I had to swap the truck tires and figure out how to keep the propane from freezing. Mike helped me insulate the undercarriage, and Julia found a used space heater on Facebook Marketplace that kept the prep area warm enough for my fingers to function. It was hard, but it felt good hard. Like every small fix reminded me I was building something worth fighting for. The new rhythm felt solid. Julia helped more. She'd show up with coffee, take photos, clean tables, organize receipts. She never made a big deal about it, just moved like she belonged. One night, after closing, we sat in the truck and listened to the wind outside. The city felt wrapped in cotton, muffled, quiet, almost holy. "You ever miss it?" she asked. I didn't have to ask what she meant. "I miss the idea of it," I said. "The hope. The routine. The us that never quite was." She nodded. But not her. I thought about it. No. That part burned away. She leaned back in her chair, smiling a little. "You're a poet, Peter. Don't tell the guys at the station. They'll revoke my man card." She laughed, and the sound felt like something I wanted to keep hearing. After that night, things shifted again. Subtle. No grand declarations. Just more moments that lasted longer. Glances that lingered. A warmth that had nothing to do with the space heater. Then came the fundraiser. A local shelter had reached out. They were short on meals for the holidays, and someone on their board had read my blog. They asked if I could park outside and serve food free of charge. I didn't hesitate. "We'll make it work," I told them. And we did. The guys at the firehouse donated ingredients. Julia rallied a few other trucks. Word got around, and soon we had a mini street fair: music, lights, food, laughter. We fed over 100 people that day. People who didn't have much but still managed to thank us like we were the ones doing something noble. After we packed up, Julia and I sat on the truck steps, tired but buzzing. "You know," she said, handing me a cup of cider, "you might have lost a marriage, but you built something better in its place." I looked around. Diesel asleep in the back. The truck warm and humming. The quiet settling in again. "Yeah," I said. This feels like home." She bumped my shoulder with hers. "Maybe it is." I didn't say anything else. Didn't have to. Some fires destroy. Others reveal what was worth saving all along. New Year's Eve crept up like it always does, slow all December, then suddenly there. Julia and I were invited to a small gathering hosted by one of the other food truck crews. Nothing fancy, just a potluck, a bonfire, and enough shared stories to keep the cold at bay. I almost didn't go. Holidays used to be Lola's territory: decorations, matching pajamas, her endless need to make every moment feel like a movie. It used to wear me out. Now there was no pressure. But there was also an ache, not for her, but for the version of me that used to believe in all of it. Julia didn't push. She just said, "Come if you feel like it," and left it at that. Around 9 p.m., I climbed into the truck, diesel in tow, and made my way to the lot. It was lit with string lights and the glow of propane heaters. Music played from an old speaker that crackled when the bass hit. Everyone was smiling, laughing, together. Julia spotted me and walked over, holding 2 mugs of hot cider. "You made it. Wouldn't miss it," I said. We stood near the fire, shoulder to shoulder. She didn't ask what I was thinking. Didn't need to. When midnight rolled in, people shouted, kissed, clinked cups. Julia looked at me, not expectant, just open. And I leaned in, not out of obligation, not because it was the thing to do, but because I wanted to. Really, truly wanted to. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, solid, real. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't just survived the past year. I'd lived through it, grown through it, and somehow, maybe, I was starting to love again, the right way this time. Later, we drove back to my place. Diesel snoozed in the back seat, tail occasionally thumping like he approved of all this. We didn't talk much, just music and quiet. Back at the truck, I unlocked the back door and stood there a second, looking inside. Grease stains, burn marks, memories in every inch. "I want to build a second one," I said out loud. Julia raised a brow. A second what? Truck. Maybe even a small cafe. Something permanent. Not just on wheels. She smiled. Peter Mason. Look at you planning futures. Guess I finally believe in one. She stepped up beside me. I'm in, whatever that looks like. We didn't hug. Didn't kiss again. Just stood side by side in the doorway of a dream we hadn't even fully sketched out yet. But it felt real. And that was enough. The cafe came together piece by piece, like a puzzle I didn't know I had all the pieces for. An old brick building on the edge of downtown opened up. Once a bakery. Long closed, dust still clinging to the corners like memories that didn't want to leave. Julia found the listing. I signed the lease. We cleaned it ourselves. Scrubbed, painted, replaced light fixtures. I installed the kitchen with help from the firehouse guys, and Diesel claimed the sunny corner under the front window as his permanent post. We opened on the first day of spring. I didn't advertise much. Just put up a chalkboard out front. Ashes and Embers Cafe. Comfort served daily. The first customer was a kid from the neighborhood. He ordered hot cocoa and a grilled cheese. Gave me a thumbs up before he even swallowed the first bite. That night, Julia and I sat in the empty cafe after close. No music. No talking. Just the hum of the fridge and the sound of Diesel snoring. You realize what you built? She asked. Something that doesn't fall apart when things get hard. I said. She reached across the table and took my hand. It wasn't about the truck anymore. Or Lola. Or revenge. It was about presence. About showing up for yourself one day at a time until you remember you're worth showing up for. Later that summer, someone tagged me in a post online. It was from Lola. A quote. Sometimes we only learn the value of peace after we set fire to the things that made us feel alive. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just distance. Like reading a chapter of a book I used to love but no longer needed to reread. I closed the app, put down my phone, and went back to the kitchen. The cafe needed a new soup for the lunch menu, and the tomatoes weren't going to roast themselves. Because this life, this quiet, hard-earned, ordinary joy, wasn't going to wait. I wasn't rising from the ashes anymore. I was building something steady, one ember at a time.